from the new recording lair located deep beneath the Wine and Spirit store in Ephrata, Pennsylvania.
You're listening to the Masonic Light Podcast.
Studio 665 presents Masonic Light Podcast. This show is recorded by Masons, for Masons. It is for entertainment purposes only. And please, no wagering.
This podcast is not endorsed by any Grand Lodge, and the ridiculous ramblings of the hosts are their own. And now, here's your host.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Masonic Light Podcast, episode 135.
135. Wow.
135.
We're going to have a great show. We know that because we've already recorded our guest, and we thought the interview was pretty good. So
it seems to work well that way, actually.
I don't know.
Although I think, he probably would have been good for the opening and closing, but we didn't know that.
We didn't know that.
He was an unknown.
Right.
But turns out he's a cool guy. We'll be talking to Brother Austin Shifrin, who is an author of a new book called More Light. Is that correct?
Yep.
And but before that, we're going to go around, do our usual deal. Jack, what have you been up to for the good of Freemasonry?
In general.
Or this podcast in particular?
In particular.
Well, last night was our stated meeting. We don't usually have back-to-back stated meeting and then a recording night, but we had a table lodge. And if you ask 10 worshipful masters how to conduct a table lodge, you'll get 11 different answers.
Right.
So we got together and figured out the worshipful master, Matt Engel, did a great job. He reached out. He did what a good master should do. He reached out to people that he knew. Can you help me? I'm trying to get this thing organized. And he reached out to good people, and they got together behind him. And we did it thusly. We had dinner at 6. Because we figured we can't really put off dinner till 7 when the meeting should start, because there's going to be people coming at 6 and they're going to be mad. So we had dinner, and then an announcement was made that there was going to be a brief business meeting upstairs. We went upstairs, did the meeting, closed the meeting, came back downstairs, and set up and opened up an Entered Apprentice Mason's Lodge in the basement. And it was fantastic. It was a packed house. Great time.
Great. I love table
Boys
lodges.
did good, yeah.
Well, that makes 2 of you, yes.
Well,
you're not a fan?
No.
You don't do them well, then.
No, I was a fan when we did one, and then a couple of worshipful grandmasters ago, when it was mandated you had to have them. It stopped, and they were every year.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like everything else that's mandated. Yeah. Like they could mandate me to go to a strip club, and I would probably hate strip clubs.
But, oh, my gosh.
Let's test that theory. No, you're right. When it became mandatory, it lost its charm, and we haven't done one for 4 years or so. But they did it good, and I just again I say it every month, every session we do here. I'm so proud of the officers in my lodge. They're doing great.
Larry, have you done anything?
Yeah, actually. Stated meeting last week, Hall Association meeting last week.
How long was your meeting?
Yeah, what time did you get home?
Oh, about 11 o'clock. I left the lodge at 10:30. Yeah, wow. It was a long night because our Hall Association meets right after the stated meeting. Well, the stated meeting was long, and in the Hall Association we had a lot to attend to. I walked out of the lodge actually at 20 of 11.
Well, I heard the first meeting didn't end until like 10:30.
No. Okay. The whole thing didn't end until 10:30.
Okay.
Also, Tall Cedars board meeting went well.
A great success.
Yeah, great. So, it was busy.
Have you guys been eating at breakfast? Are you back meeting again?
Yeah, there's about 8 of us that are pretty much naturally going there, and I find it's a really good group.
Should probably quit talking about it then. That way other people don't show up.
When we were up to 30 and 35 coming to it was out of hand.
Yes, it was.
Tall Cedars. I went to that executive board meeting. I've been practicing for the Feast of the Paschal Lamb. In fact, I'll be practicing tomorrow night. That's our big, and luckily because of that, somehow I'm getting out of having any parts in the fall reunion this year, just because of the part they wanted to put me in. They can't put me in because I'm going to be on stage immediately before it in a tuxedo. So for once it actually worked out. Instead of like last fall, I had to be in, I think, 3 or 4 degrees. The first one in the morning and the last one in the afternoon, and it was a long day. Brother Josh.
I again have done nothing.
Okay, your initiation into the past masterhood needs to end.
Harumph.
I ended up being at work really late and then had no desire to rush to get to the meeting. So, yeah, it was a long day.
Yeah.
You are on the program for April, though, right?
Larry, the microphone's right there.
What?
Aren't you on the program for April?
For what?
You're the speaker.
Better, yeah. Something. Presenting something? I don't know.
I'm not presenting anything.
I think you're talking about the podcast or something.
All right, now everybody relax. It's Tim's turn. He's going to pull out his binder.
Oh, we see it on the screen.
You know, actually, it's not that bad. But I do want to acknowledge that
It's color coded.
I went to the Lancaster bowling event, and is it Lodge of Perfection that sponsored that? Or
Correct, Lancaster Lodge of Perfection.
Yeah, Lancaster Lodge of Perfection actually sponsored it. The Scottish Rite Club from the Valley of Harrisburg, and it was the one that sent out the invites to all of us. The Masonic Light podcast was actually a show or a sponsor of the event, I think.
You were going. Well, anyway, we'll talk about it later.
So yeah, we were a sponsor.
We intended to sponsor the event.
Yeah, so we're
Congratulations, us.
Yeah, so we're sending them some money. But that was really a fun event over in Mount Joy, which was literally about 1.5 miles from Larry's house.
Yeah.
And he forgot about it.
Yeah, I did. Hey, what's the difference between the blue lines and the green lines? It's got my curiosity.
I don't know, man. What's the difference between?
The green ones are like President's Day, Veterans Day.
Yeah.
They're things that...
Oh, and now there's dark green.
Oh,
Wow.
dark green, dark blue.
There you go. Blue, it looks like tends. Well, I don't know. There's no,
All right, Timmy, our audience can't see your calendar. They don't care. Get back to bowling.
Back on track here. It's Larry's fault.
It distracted me. I'm sorry.
So the bowling event was a lot of fun. I think I heard they raised like in excess of $7,000 for the Children's Dyslexia Center, which was absolutely amazing. It was a great turnout.
So I'm a very inactive member of that Lodge of Perfection, but from what I understand, they started out, the first year renting like 4 lanes for a couple hours. Then the next year they expanded like to 6 lanes, 8 lanes. This year they rented the whole bowling alley.
That's the way to build an event.
Yes.
Right. Everybody wants to try and hit a home run.
Yeah, there's a lesson in that. Yeah. Yep.
And there were people literally from all over the place there, which was great because the Lancaster Lodge of Perfection had a successful fundraiser. You had a lot of cross-pollination from other places. I know the Valley of Harrisburg turned out in big numbers.
And I know it's hard to not step on each other's toes when these groups to cover multiple counties. But the same day, Zembo Shrine, they had their mini golf event inside the Shrine Temple, and I believe raised over $4,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of guys out there making things happen. And getting some things done.
I think we spend way too much time talking about grumpy things, and
but
there's a lot of good going on in this fraternity right now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We forgot we were at Grotto.
Well, that's what I was about to mention.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Is that on the 27th of February we were all at Grotto, and it was a wonderful speaker. It's one of the few times that we've had a female speaker. and it was. You want to mention the topic?
Yeah, so there was a. I had to leave early, but I was familiar with the topic. Here in Ephrata, if you watch Band of Brothers, it was based on Major Dick Winters, and he grew up here in the Ephrata area, and the Ephrata people, the colonists of Ephrata.
The colonists of Ephrata.
They built a statue in his honor, and I guess she talked about that.
Yeah, it was very informative. It was nice, and everybody was well behaved, and a good time was had by all. So that's all.
Mention it, Becky Gallagher.
Yeah. Owner of the
historic Smithton Inn,
a sponsor of the Masonic Light podcast. So I think that covered the end of February, and then Pete and I were at an event. No, Pete didn't come to Harrisburg. Yeah, you were there.
I was there for the Grand Master's Town Hall.
That's right, for the Town Hall. We had a Town Hall and also an open house for prospective Masons. And you'll hear in the interview a reference to that.
Yeah, I wasn't there for the morning session.
Yeah, there were about half as many people for the morning as there was for the afternoon. And the event happened.
No, I will say, the Grand Master, I can only imagine what kind of feedback he must have heard through the years of him going up the line. And maybe, when he's done being right worshipful, he'll come on and talk to us about it one day.
Mm-hmm. Well, that depends on the next few seconds.
Right.
But no,
It depends on how I edit the interview.
Right.
No, the long and short of it is he and some of his, I don't want the title, not executives, managers.
Yeah.
But they went into depth about the finances of the Grand Lodge. He has made it a point to make it very transparent. And they have really trimmed the fat that can be trimmed. And they are making good money in their investments.
Right.
I guess he must have gotten some negative feedback from some of the more rural parts of the state.
Yeah.
About the $20 dues increase.
Right.
But
well, and I think the thing that folks need to understand is here in Pennsylvania, the Grand Lodge portion of dues last year was $28.50. And if you look back into the 1960s even, it was like $15 or something like that. So it really had not kept up with the times. And as you said, I think that what happened was they got some negative feedback from somewhere. It certainly didn't come from the experiences that I had had, but it was clear that they felt there were some negative comments out there about that. And let's just be transparent. And I think this is part of what they're trying to tee up. There's going to be another one before not too long.
And they're trying to put the global organization, or at least the Pennsylvania global organization, on a firm financial footing.
Right.
And okay, as a business person, I respect that.
Absolutely.
I think there's value here. So I'm willing to pay for it.
And one of the things he mentioned is we never talk about like the tangible benefits of being a Mason. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, if you're a Master Mason in good standing for 5 years, you're entitled to go to one of the Masonic villages. And if you cannot afford to stay there, you will stay there.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think he said maybe if you have a house in Maui and another one in Vail and you've got 7 Cadillacs, you're going to be accepted, but you might have to pay.
You might have to pay a little bit, yeah.
But if you're just living on Social Security,
you're
going to live way better than going to your county home.
Yeah, right. But he's doing. I think they are, because it's a group of people that are administering the organization, and I think there were changes that needed to be made, and there were. I've heard stories about shenanigans going back years, and I'm personally glad to know that somebody's paying attention to the speedometer needle and bringing us back into the speed limit. That's
correct. And the last thing I just want to mention is the stated meeting of Eureka West Shore Lodge number 302, where we had Kilt Night, which was it's something. I mean, I don't own a quilt. I don't play along.
A quilt?
Quilt night? Were the Mennonites there?
Kilt night. Kilt night. Sorry.
We should have all shown up in
every
quilts.
while on the ones my
Toga,
tongue gets tumbled.
toga.
You know, yeah. So the official voice of the opening of the Masonic Light podcast was our guest speaker, Brother Brian Hill.
So you're saying we are being more progressive as an organization. We are having a cross-dressing night.
Yes, that was our cross-dressing night. So, no, actually, it was very informative. It was a very informative talk that Brian brought us, and we had several brethren, almost a dozen that wore kilts, and it's like you try to be all things to all people, and
I'm curious. I have to ask this
Okay.
as someone whose lodge has put on a kilt night thing. Why do it in the dead of winter?
well, that's interesting
Because there's breezes and stuff going on.
yeah, I know, but you
right,
get wherever 3 or more are gathered, the temperature's 85. So.
Well, that's true.
And
But-
did the men, because I picture my good friend and friend of AMD, Jerome, a large man,
Yes.
There were a couple-
a man of stature.
Yeah.
I just don't see him sitting politely with his knees touching like a
Well,
female
if-
news anchor.
if you
I
go-
see him
If
airing
you,
his bits.
if you go on the Facebook page of Eureka West Shore Lodge number 302,
Oh, no, sure.
you will see pictures of
Fatal
the
attractions.
folks who dressed up. And there are some, what did you call them?
Sharon Stone moments.
What did you call them?
Airing your bits?
No,
Oh.
just some rather large guys that
Yeah,
participated.
men.
Men of stature,
Volume.
men of volume. But it was a lot of fun. So before we take a break,
Wait, I have one more thing
Okay,
that
yes.
I did
Go ahead.
in the past couple of weeks. I was invited to speak at a Christiana Lodge. Chris Gibson, past master, is now master. And he invited me to speak to do my Holy St. John thing. And then he told me, oh, yeah, we're also doing a first degree.
oh,
Could you do it?
What? You're gonna have a business meeting, a whole first degree, and then you want me to speak? Really? And he
you
says,
got to do something.
yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. They're really excited to have you. And I did a thing. I cut it way down, but good for him, because that's one of the Grand Master's motions for the year. Is he's allowing some degree work to be done at a stated meeting. Right. And it's not right for every lodge. It's not right for, some degrees, I think. But I think it's good for people to see the ritual work and at least to see how hard their officers work.
And it's nice for a candidate when they open their eyes to see a room full of people.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting because the year I was about to become master, I actually had that as one of my programs.
Mm-hmm.
And my thinking was, there are guys who haven't seen a degree conferred for
In 40
50
years, yeah.
40 or 50 years since they got it. We were going to do an entered apprentice degree. And that was when the edict came down that the new Grand Master at the time was nixing degree work on a stated meeting night. So obviously we had to change it. But,
Let me tell you.
Larry is like
February, right? Yeah, February. We did that at Millersville 476. We had a long stated meeting, and then we had a degree after that. There are 58 people in our lodge.
It's awesome.
When the degree was announced that they were going to do it, 40 of them left.
Oh,
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, that's
40
embarrassing.
of them
bad.
left.
That's not good.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. No
It
one
didn't-
left.
It didn't work.
No one left this meeting. But anyway, so I think the key to it in pulling it off was that the stated meeting part of the meeting was super brief.
Yeah.
Just like
You have
That's
to.
12
important.
minutes,
You have
in and
to.
out,
That's
pay the
important.
bills, done.
You have to.
And frankly, that's what every stated meeting should be.
Right.
You go through the business of the lodge, get all that nonsense done, and then relax and have fun and have a
Well,
presentation.
basically, being a new lodge, there's a lot of business we have to take care of.
Yeah.
We didn't get out of there. We didn't get started on the degree aspect until 9:30.
What degree was it?
Oh gosh, I think it was a second. It was fellowcraft.
Larry, I mean, I know, and we have a new master, but let me just say that's I don't know whether I'm quoting Dolly Parton, but that's 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag.
That's a tough one.
You just,
Why we even did it, I have no idea.
yeah, it's just poor planning.
So before we take a break, we need to pause for a moment and thank those who keep this show going, our patrons on Patreon. And we greatly appreciate your support. We have been able to do this craziness for, what is it, Larry, now 6 years?
They said 6.
6 years, 7 years, whatever it is. It just,
And
it's
because of your help,
Several.
we get to have our management retreat in Tahiti this year.
Hot dog.
That's right.
No, we're actually
That's the super excellent sponsor. Yeah.
we're actually going to be spending some of the money for once. We're actually going to be adding a camera soon. We don't know when,
Or if it will work.
or we keep talking about it,
Yeah.
but we are actually going to try and spend some of the money instead of just hoarding it.
And for as little as $1 a month.
$1.
You also, as a special member, if you want to buy that camera for us or contribute, it's like PBS.
So
That camera costs $357.
This could be like the
Write us a check.
Joe Johnson construction camera in the Masonic Light.
Yeah.
We'll even put a tape.
Get
on
naming
there.
rights for the camera.
Yeah,
That's
naming
right,
rights for the
naming rights for the
camera.
camera.
Absolutely.
So,
So if you're
there you
out
go.
there and you'd like to sponsor this, let us know. But literally, for as little as $1 a month, you can keep the fine content on this show. Jack is playing with my stem. I don't know.
Yeah, Tim, you wobbling your microphone has been making all the noise the whole show.
Yeah,
I'm
it's going
wobbling
like
the
this.
microphone?
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
It makes this noise.
Okay.
And if you
Yes.
have a really good stereo, you heard it at home.
Okay.
So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with no wobbles and our guest, Brother Austin Shifrin.
Why choose George J. Grove & Sons for your next home improvement project? At George J. Grove & Sons, we've built our reputation on quality and trust for more than 50 years. From planning to materials to installation, George J. Grove promises a home improvement experience second to none. Whether your goal is reducing energy costs, decreasing maintenance, updating curb appeal, or simply increasing the value of your home, the George J. Grove team will recommend and provide solutions that stand the test of time. Call 717-393-0859 for an estimate or visit us at georgejgrove.com.
And we're back. Tonight's guest is Austin Shifrin. He is an author and a good Freemason from western parts of Pennsylvania. So, Austin, welcome to the Masonic Light Podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your Masonic journey, how you got to where you are today?
I absolutely can, and it's actually fun that you ask about that because it also does make its way into the book. And you know, it's funny how I always thought that my story was so unique, but it's been so interesting over the course of this time talking to more and more brethren and finding out that they have life experiences like this. When I was in high school, I was already experiencing some curiosity about the Freemasons, and I happened to know that my grandfather had been a member. And I approached him to discuss it, and he said, well, you know, you're about to go off to college. Freemasonry is, at its heart, a fraternity. So why don't you, go away and have your school experience and see what fraternities are like, and if this is something that interests you, then maybe you should come back to me, and we should discuss it some more. So at least he wasn't, totally tight-lipped on the subject. We know there are some fellows who have male relatives in their family and they never hear anything. Mm-hmm. But I think in the 60 years since he had been on a college campus when we were having that conversation,
the concept of
the American Greek letter fraternity system may have had changed a bit in the interim, right?
Well, there was that
So
movie.
I came to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh in 1993, and I spent some very enjoyable time with some fellas in some fraternities. But having come away from that, viewing it as kind of a rowdy and ribald experience, I was like, I don't know that this is something that I necessarily am interested in pursuing further. And I just never discussed it more with my grandfather.
See, I was the
But I
exact
did always-
opposite. I loved it. And then when I got into the Masons, I'm like, where's the keg? I'm disappointed for 30 years.
Right on. So I always had this lingering curiosity in the back of my mind, though, that maybe the comparison, the perfect comparison hadn't really been made there, And you fast forward to, I don't know, I want to say it's around 2005 or so, and I was living in the south side of Pittsburgh, and I got to know a lot of the small business owners, like up and down the main drag in the south side of Pittsburgh, in the course of working, selling advertising space for a newspaper. So I was particularly friendly with this fella who owned a delicatessen in the south side of Pittsburgh by the name of Eric Cohen. And this neighborhood is kind of known for its nightlife, so there's flyers for events all over the place. So in the window of his deli, there were always these flyers for rock shows and stuff. But one time I'm walking past there, and there's a flyer in the window that says, come out and join us for this social event. And we're going to watch the Pro Bowl football game, and we're going to eat hoagies, and we're going to shoot pool, and it's sponsored by, and then I look at the logos underneath, and there's like 6 different Masonic bodies. And I was like, I have never seen such a flyer as this. So I walked into the deli, and I had known this guy, Eric, for a couple of years now. And I said to him, what's the story with this flyer in your window? And he says, oh, I'm so glad you asked. He said, I'm a member of the Freemasons, and I've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's something that I really enjoy. So I'm helping, put on this social event. And I told him this story about, the situation with my grandfather and how I still had this lingering suspicion there was more to it than I was aware of. And he said, well, why don't you come out, meet the guys, and if you enjoy the event and you enjoy their company and you think it's something you want to pursue further, maybe you and I should talk about it some more. And yada, yada, yada. I go out to this event, and I on my way there, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, is this going to be like the Simpsons episode of the Stonecutters? Is it going to be a bunch of guys in a smoky back room running the world?
Yeah,
And I get there, and it was a bunch of nice, normal guys. But it was, in fact, what surprised me more beyond that is the mix of people. So it was like there were attorneys, and there were professors, and there were guys who fixed utility lines. And it was like, just this big mix of people. And I was like, oh, this is a nice bunch of guys. I'd like to be involved in something like this. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the story.
I wasn't sure that the Pro Bowl would be a good lead, but apparently that was a score back in 93 or 2003.
So you came into the fraternity. You've been in since then.
Yes.
How? Tell us a little bit about your journey since then.
Wait, what year did you join, Austin?
So I joined up in 2006.
Okay.
And blessing and a curse, but Eric was the kind of guy who loved exploring everything. So he was Blue Lodge, he was York Rite, he was Scottish Rite, he was Shrine, and a handful of other things that folks don't even talk about all that much. And so I joined up in June of 2006, right? Which happened to mean that we also took the summer break in between my first degree and my second. I had a little bit longer to work on that stuff. Mm-hmm. All that jazzy memorization, right? But I wrapped up my second and my third, finished up in October of 2006, and he said, "Oh, what terrific timing this is! In November, we're doing an induction in the Scottish Rite. You ought to come check that out."
Cha-ching.
So I'm going to see now. This is why it's a good thing that I wrote a book, because I actually now have all of this in writing. And if left to my own devices, I would scramble up the order of things in my memory. But I I had the great good fortune to travel with this fella Eric for years and years, in the course of which I joined, all this wide variety of different appendant bodies, and got to explore kind of the two angles of things that I like the most about Masonry, right? Because I'm very into the spiritual, the intellectual, the philosophical, but also there is just the fun and fellowship. And you get those two different things in very different flavors in each of these places. So I joined up with Scottish Rite. I also then wound up in chapter and council. I wound up in the Shrine. We helped charter our own AMD council.
Attaboy.
Wound up in the Tall Cedars. And, a handful of other, interesting experiences along the way. Some of my great excitement here then was not this most recent Supreme Council out in Ohio, but the one prior to that in Milwaukee. I was tapped to receive the 33rd, which was both an exciting and a really humbling experience.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
So it's been a heck of a trip, man.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book that we're talking about. Or do we want to take a quick break and
No, we'll jump into it a little bit.
milk the cow?
We all read a few of the snippets,
The excerpts.
Yeah,
since the publisher was
good.
too cheap to send us, preview copies. But just saying.
Well, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I would be spoiling all the fun if I sent you the full manuscript of the book.
See, there you go.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Right? Where's the fun in that? But also there's the fact that I haven't got the physical copies yet.
Yeah, it's
so I
actually
didn't have a nice galley to send you.
I know, but it's still fun to poke at it.
So give us a little synopsis about what angle your book takes on the topic of Freemasonry.
Sure, absolutely. So I came at this from two kind of separate angles, right? There's a component to the book that is a collection of articles that I had produced for the Scottish Rite magazine that is published out our way. Particularly on this, I want to give a shout out to PJ Roop. He's the editor of our magazine. In addition to his positions within Grand Lodge and on Supreme Council, he does a terrific job editing this magazine. And they were kind enough to ask me to stay on and continue writing for them after I did my stint as the Sovereign Prince of Princes of Jerusalem over here. So a lot of my articles are kind of about the principles and tenets of Freemasonry, right? Like what are the guiding values that we're supposed to be adhering to, and how do we couch them in a little bit more context? Because it's one thing to hear people reciting a bunch of dialogue, the same way you've always heard it. But the question is, can we put it in some kind of context, and can we connect it to other concepts that are familiar from our daily lives? So that's something that I tried to do in these essays. The second component of the book is a presentation that I did to the Squirrel Hill Historical Society about the history of Freemasonry, like on a global level, and then focusing a little bit more on a Pittsburgh and Southwest PA level. But I did it through a lens of the course of my Masonic career in joining these different bodies. So I gave a little bit of my life history and said, in this year I had this encounter, and it brought me to join this body, this division. And then I would zoom out and say, the history of that division is, it had its nascence and its origins in this country in this year when these people met and had this epiphany. And then I zoom back and forth between the levels of my joining a branch of the group and what its origins are.
So what was one of your, I guess, greatest learnings as you were going through the process of writing the book? Because as you said, you've kind of written this on a couple of different levels, both from your own personal experiences to a broader. Here's the organizational look. What's one of your learnings?
I think one of the greatest learnings that I've had, and it's is about the quote unquote secret of Freemasonry. If we accept a premise that the quote unquote secret of Freemasonry is how much common ground we truly have, and that even beyond the boundaries of membership, like all humankind should be treating each other as brothers, then that would be a secret that we wouldn't want to keep to ourselves, you know? So this idea that the secret is something that we want to spread farther rather than, quote unquote, keep secret. To me, that's one of the greatest learnings out of the process.
The one excerpt I read, you got into it a little bit about, I think one of the topics was, you know, a Freemason should be a gentleman. But then you started digging a little deeper.
And I'll stand by that.
And you started digging a little deeper as to what does that mean now versus what does being a gentleman mean when that was put into print? Could you make more sense of it to me than I just did?
I hope so. I think that there was an era when the notion of being a gentleman carried with it some of the artifact and the relic of a caste system, right? The idea that there's a nobility, and then there's people, in varying tiers, like, quote unquote, beneath that, right? So a gentleman might be possessed of some refinement, and the question is that even accessible to other people? And I think the context in which we tend to use it more today is, does this person possess self-control? Do they understand how to conduct themselves in a way that promotes harmony with others? That's gentlemanly, and it's an evolution, because the concept has evolved alongside the fact that the language has evolved. Language is a living thing, and it keeps evolving. So we're so fond of the notion that Freemasonry is all about symbols. All of language is symbols too, and I think what being a gentleman stands for has surely changed quite a bit in 400 years.
Somebody in one of our lodge meetings a month or two ago said he got up and he gave a short talk, and he spoke about pride and honor, and it's ironic that those are two things that are essentially taboo now in modern society. That if you have pride over anything, then you're somehow a bad person for that, and that there's no such thing as honor anymore in society, and people have just thrown it away, and that's one of the things we do is try to correct that.
I'm really glad that you brought that up. I'm not sure whether I can touch on honor as much, but what you just said about pride is kind of a fascinating subject for me right now, because here I am in the process of trying to publish this book. And I am now a first-time author. First off, it was extremely exciting to hear myself referred to as an author in the first place. This is a new experience.
You're welcome.
But thank you. But, prior to this, I did have an experience many moons ago singing with a band, right? And I draw this comparison sometimes because you've got this product, this thing that you're creating that's extremely personal. And the only way that you can put it out into the world is if you've got at least some level of conviction that anybody wants to hear it. Right? So the value of modesty is taught in Lodge for very good reasons. But the question is, how can I balance an appropriate modesty with an appropriate confidence, right? And say, yes, I have something of value to say. I have something of value to share, and I want to offer it to people, right? But really, that's something that the Blue Lodge experience is supposed to teach every member. Mm-hmm. Because once you're a full member, once you're a Master Mason, you have now earned yourself the right to stand up in any gathering.
By the exercise
provided you follow the protocol for standing up,
yeah.
Right? And offer your opinion, your 2 cents on whatever's being discussed. So it's like it's supposed to imbue you with this confidence to say, I am equal with my peers, and if I have something to contribute, I deserve to be heard. So trying to strike that balance between the confidence, the conviction, and the modesty, middle pillar, right? Trying to find a balance is always important.
Mm-hmm. Outside of one of our AMD councils, when was the last time in a Blue Lodge that someone actually stood up and presented a topic for discussion, or someone actually stood up and engaged in a conversation rather than,
never a conversation.
Debating over green beans or
I mean, absent the minutes and the business of the lodge, there's never an opportunity for just conversation in the lodge for any sort of edifying discussion at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we greatly miss from...
It's the core and heart of it.
Yeah.
It's the bone and marrow. Yeah.
I mean, I know... personally, I see a fine line. We'll use Facebook or social media as an example. The person that'll make a post that says, I pulled over and I helped a stranded motorist today. Okay, well, if you're making that post, that's about you. You want people to recognize you for being a good person. But then on the other hand, when I'm volunteering for an organization or I'm trying to help raise money for something, I personally don't want to take credit for things, but sometimes I'm learning that's at the detriment of the organization. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes I need to be more proud of these things I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's not for me.
That's okay.
To give, but but I don't know. I
mean, a perfect example of that was the conversation we had at our last episode with you with the work you do with the rescue.
Well, you forced it out of me because you're such a good interviewer.
We literally beat him over the head till he responded.
That's true. You can go back and listen to that episode.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to have continue our interview with Brother Austin Shifrin.
As far back as the mid-1800s, records exist describing the pre-meeting tradition of brethren smoking cigars during and after gatherings. To this day, the practice of smoking cigars remains very much alive in many lodges. This custom is considered a time for brethren to relax, exchange ideas, and enjoy the simplicity and fellowship that is the very essence of our brotherhood. This is what Hiram Solomon Cigars is all about. Our starting principles are to bring Masonic brethren together in the harmony of a good cigar. Pull up a chair, sit back, light up any of our premium cigars, and enjoy the history. Hiram Solomon Cigars can be found at fine cigar retailers. For a complete list, visit HiramSolomonCigars.com or check them out on social media to find out when they'll be at a live event near you. Hiram Solomon Cigars is pleased to be the official cigar of the Masonic Light Podcast.
And we're back with the world-famous author.
You are too kind. You are really...
Austin Shifrin. Thank you for being with us.
If my head swells up any more than this, I won't be able to walk out of my own home office.
Hey, come on. There's a point of pride here. You should be proud. It's an accomplishment. Was the meme that was going around last year about the admiral that was talking at some graduation ceremony?
About making your bed.
And he said, if you don't do anything else in the day, get up out of make your bed, because it's important to have accomplished something.
Do it early in the day.
So congratulations, you've accomplished something, and it's a big thing. So tell us, I'm curious about the format of the book, the hardcover, softcover, how many pages, all that kind of stuff. Because I like thin books with wide margins, and
lots of pictures.
Lots of pictures.
Yeah, exactly. We all went to college.
So I kind of skimped on the visuals on this one, but I think you'll be able to digest it. The book is 128 pages. The first 2/3 of it consists of those essays that were originally written for Right Now, the Scottish Rite magazine. So they come in nice, short, digestible chunks. These essays, and then so the whole thing comes to a sum total of 128 pages. When it comes out, it will be available in paperback, in hardcover, and as an ebook. People will be able to get the book through Amazon. They'll be able to get it in the Apple iBook store. They'll be able to get it on their Nook, on their Kobo. People will be able to pick it up at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, at Baker & Taylor. So yeah, broadly available.
Cool. Tim, what else you got?
Oh, I thought you had another one.
No. That was my curiosity. I like it. It reads. It's not quite a primer. It's deeper than that, and it gets off into side bodies that are, interesting on a different level to different people. So the little chunk that I read, Claudie comes to mind a little bit. Just the old Tyler talks. Just where you pick a subject and you just go, dig the subject,
go dig
it up,
yeah.
and turn over the soil. And
thank you. I mean, that's a real nice comparison, which I appreciate. And it was when I was writing it for the Scottish Rite magazine. One of the things that kept crossing my mind is that the original layer of distribution, right, is going to fellows who are already members. They're Scottish Rite, they're Blue Lodge. It means that they've already got some background and some experience.
Right.
So it's certainly not, lecturing about fundamentals to people who are unfamiliar with it, right? But like I was saying earlier on, kind of in the interview, one of the things that I did want to do is place the concepts into a context. So yes, it's something that you've heard about before within the four walls of Masonry. How does that tie into the rest of your life?
Mm-hmm.
But then in addition, one of the things that was really very salient to me. So when my friend Eric brought me into Blue Lodge, and I should point out that I miss him badly. As of last week, he's gone 4 years. We lost him to colon cancer, and I miss him all the time. And when his presence is missed in all of these different bodies that he was my entree to. But when he brought me in, he knew I was a voracious reader. So one of the ways that he lured me in was by giving me publications. And he said, if this, this might stimulate your intellect. So I was thinking about this, and I said, I have to remember that once it goes into print, it's not exclusive to the initiates, right? Now it's something for the general public. So I wanted this to be something that could be considered useful, valuable, and interesting, not only to the brethren, but also to the general public.
So you said you're a voracious reader, and it reminded me I was at doing a presentation at a lodge recently, and one of the guys came up after the meeting, and he said, "How do you know this? Like, is there a book?" And I thought, yeah, there's a million books, and there's podcasts, and there's all magazines and all kinds of stuff. You just have to read it. It's all out there. It's been out there. I mean, some of it's obsolete now, but there's so much out now, especially after COVID. I mean, people were publishing stuff, new podcasts, and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what you're doing is an important, deeper look. And I think it's important. What this is coming around to is I think it's important that anybody who's a Mason just read anything. Read the toothpaste tube. I don't care. just read it, because that's how you take things into yourself. If all you get is off the phone or the screen, it's somebody else's information. And when you read, you turn it into your own information.
It's very funny that we have this adage that what Freemasonry does is make good men better. Because what that phrase does, the only negative aspect of that phrase is it makes it sound like it's potentially a very passive experience for the man, right? Mm-hmm. Someone is going to wave this magic wand at me, and I will go from good to better. And what Freemasonry does do is Freemasonry is like a buffet of stimulating nourishment for the intellect. But just because it puts it in front of you doesn't mean it's going to spoon feed it to you.
Right.
You got to show up to that buffet. You got to load up your plate, man.
Yeah. What does that look like, though? What that's a euphemism for doing something. But what is it? What is the thing that they need to be doing? For me, there's a couple of options. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, my thought on it is that I think it should not look the same for every person. That's one thing. This is one thing I've given a lot of thought to, especially in the past couple of years. Freemasonry does encourage harmony And in some ways, it tries to create that harmony by uniformity. But there's a certain level of conformity that can't be achieved while still valuing the individual, right? So if one guy in the lodge is really buzzed about history, he should go out and read up on history. But if another guy in the lodge is really excited by esoterica, he should go out and read up on the esoterica. And not every guy in your lodge needs to be an expert on the same stuff, but everybody should be out there trying to edify themselves.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. We did a series of episodes, year and a half, 2 years ago?
I lose track of years now.
They kept coming back up talking about the 5 aspects of Freemasonry, and it dealt with exactly what you just said.
Right, and that's what we kind of made it up on the fly. We tried to narrow it down to, what were you looking for in Freemasonry when you joined? And, there's some men that join looking for that fraternal friendship. Some people were looking for, they enjoy the history that they read about it and the great men that were part of this fraternity and how our buildings are everywhere and all these and some people were into the esotericism. Some people like being on stage and doing degrees and doing memorization. Mm-hmm. And what was number 5?
Yep. Well, the fellowship.
Philanthropy.
Fellowship and philanthropy. Were
yes.
And, we provide all... But I've been trying to tell people in some of my other little talks on different topics that you got to be careful, especially in some of these smaller lodges, where if a man joins and your lodge is not providing the thing he's looking for, or at least doesn't recognize it and kind of help show it to him or where he can find it, you're going to lose that guy. And that's my 50 cents.
I'm sitting here watching Larry with his building blocks.
I'm particularly...
I don't know if it should be...
Go ahead, Austin. Ignore Larry.
I just can't think of whether it should be more reassuring to me that I came up with the same idea that you guys already had, or if it should be more reassuring to you that your guest stumbled across the same idea.
No, it's a pattern that repeats. We've both recognized the pattern separatght.
Mm-hmm. Right on, man.
Yeah,
right on.
It is there. It's definitely a thing, but I don't think lodges understand that. I don't even think Grand Lodge understands that. I think they think that it's a machine, and
and people think they understand, and this is where I lose my dues card. But I saw the Grand Master's talk this past weekend, mm-hmm. and one of the first things he said was, men do not come to lodge to hear the bills and the minutes. And then 5 minutes later, we talked about the bills for 90 minutes as we talked about the finances of Grand Lodge. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm at a loss.
Just an observation. Huh?
Somebody's got to love the business part of it, so let that guy be the master.
Yeah, this is an interesting irony, right? Because if we say, look, the fraternity has to be ready to offer a wide variety of experiences for men who are interested in different things, then perhaps the upper echelon of Freemasonry is best designed for people who want to get there, and fellas who want to be boots on the ground and making the individual Blue Lodges a warm and welcoming experience. We can stay deployed in the field, making those Blue Lodges a warm and welcoming experience. That's okay too.
I encountered a prospect about a month or so ago after actually Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master Larry Durr's installation. A couple of us went over to have a cigar, and after several minutes, the guy taps me on the shoulder, and long story short, he's like, "Are you all Masons?" "Yes." "Well, I've been interested." "Oh, tell me about your interest." An hour later, we're telling him about the Cigar Lodge coming up and the Grand Masters meeting down in Harrisburg. And, it's like, show up to those things, because you will get to meet a lot of different brethren from a lot of different lodges. And it is important that you find a connection. This guy was not connected in a community where he knew any Masons. And I said to him, depending on if you just randomly walk up to a lodge and think, oh, I liked those guys over at the cigar shop, so this is what it is, you may find yourself, when your eyes open, that you are in a room full of 94-year-olds who aren't doing anything. And then in that case, you've made a bad choice. On the other hand, there are plenty of lodges. Unless you're a 94-year-old
who is looking to not do anything.
That's right.
That's right. And then you're like, I found my people.
I found my people. That's right. Exactly.
Inertia.
But anyway, this gentleman had, by the end of those two events, had connected to a lodge. They were well into scheduling opportunities to get to know him well enough to find him some recommenders. And I mentioned to one of the brethren from that lodge, I said, when he gets ready to get his first degree, let me know. I want to show up just because of that encounter.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's how it should be.
But that's it. You got to find what's right for you.
And I think you have to be you also have to have your radar up. I mean, if we're talking about, looking for people who might be good Masons.
Yeah.
It used to be that we just didn't talk about it, didn't reflect it anywhere, and then we started talking about it, but we're not really doing much about it. And we're really at a point where you have to really identify solid people and offer them an opportunity.
And I think that's what the Grand Master was trying to say. Too many people hear that as, we just need to open the floodgates.
Austin, have you been to any of his meetings, the new Grand Master? Have you heard his message for that? Or are we talking around you?
I did come into the quarterly, the open installation, where he was presenting his programs. Which, first off, that was dope. I love going to a Grand Lodge.
Well, let me get this off the table.
So it's like I thought his presentation of his agenda was impassioned. I thought that the fellowship was terrific. I even thought the magic show was pretty cool, man. That was just a good time. That was a good time was had by all.
That's great, Larry. You've got a question.
I did, but everybody shot me down. I'm sorry,
man,
my voice is wrecked tonight.
Question. I've been waiting for the Larry question.
I was really interested when you talked about a traveling man. And when I read the article, it brought me back to when I was about 8-9 years old. Most of my uncles were Freemasons, and they would get together in my grandmother's house, and they would talk a foreign language. That's what my grandmother said. She said they're speaking in tongues. And they would get together, and we had a newly made uncle who became a Master Mason. And one of my uncles said, "Are you a traveling man?" And he said, "Yes, I intend to travel to the East." Well, no one knew what they were talking about. And I said, "Well, how old's your grandmother?" "Well, she's 665 years old." "Well, where does she live?" "Oh, in Dover, Delaware." Oh, no one knew. And I was brought up in that kind of an atmosphere, and it just brought back memories. When you talked about traveling in Freemasonry, I thought it was excellent. Tell me how you came to that.
It's so funny because you're simultaneously speaking in English. Like it's English.
Yeah.
But it's like, but still, no one but the cognoscenti are gonna understand. But one time, I'm walking through a Target parking lot, right, and there's a guy who stopped in, I guess what would equivalently be like the loading zone, right? He's like right in front of the building rather than being in a parking spot, and he's hauling some stuff in, and he's just got it shoved into the back of the van, and I see him drop the hatch, and there's a square and compass on it, and I was like, "Hey, brother," and he looks up and he's just so startled, and he's trying to think of where he knows me from. And I said, no, I saw the square and compass on your car. And he's like, "Oh, which lodge are you from?" And it's just that instantaneous recognition. It gives me the little tinglies on the back of my neck right now, and I'm just talking to you on the radio. Like, how crazy is that? It's just wild.
So Larry could give you some advice, and it would probably be get your book published quickly. because in his experience, he had one of his books stolen.
No. Qualify that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Kind of like our 5 things. Apparently, Larry and Dan Brown had exactly the same idea at the same time, but Dan Brown made $50 bazillion, and Larry
just had 50 bazillion copies of his book printed.
Didn't you know? Wait, didn't you know? There's actually someone who has published a book that's about how they had Dan Brown's book idea. And Dan Brown
in England, and they sued him, and they
even
lost.
More meta.
Yeah.
This is getting even more meta because now Larry's going to have to put out a book.
Yeah,
about the guy who put out the book about Dan Brown stealing his book.
You know what they say? You put a million gorillas in front of typewriters, right?
Yeah. Well, and Pete can confirm it because Pete was reviewing it along the way.
Yeah, basically they both turned Born in Blood into a novel.
Right. Yeah. Is that what? That's Bajent and Lee, right?
Yeah, it was. No, it was the
not Knight and Lomas.
Yeah. No, it was Bajent and Lee.
You got it. You got it right.
Yeah, they sued Dan Brown in a court in England, and they lost.
Oh my goodness.
All right, well, Austin, we really appreciate you being with us here tonight. Just before we go, can you remind our listeners again when you think the book will be published?
And remind us the title.
And remind us the title and where they should be able to find it.
Right, so the title of the book is More Light, Collected Masonic Writings 2017 to 2021. It's going to be available online at Amazon, but also at Apple iBooks. And then in brick and mortar, you'll be able to find it in Barnes & Noble, as well as Baker and Taylor. Another good way, though, to keep apprised of when it's actually going to hit the market is if you look for me on the Facebook. My first name is Austin, spelled just like the capital of Texas, and the last name is Shifrin. Austin Shifrin. You look for somebody got it right on the whiteboard.
I got it right on the whiteboard.
The field goal sign right there. Yes. So if you look me up on the Facebook, I will be announcing as the thing actually makes its way off the presses and into the market.
Very, very cool. And what do you have any speaking engagements coming up? Is there anywhere people can see you, or will you be the guest speaker at Pittsburgh Council number 6 or anywhere?
So as it happens, I'm going to be out in Arizona, and I'm going to be visiting and speaking at Wayfarers Lodge in the Phoenix area on Tuesday, April 12th.
Awesome. So if any of our listeners are, and we know we have listeners out there,
yeah, we do.
Make sure you get out there and say hello to Austin. So, again, Austin, thanks for being on the show tonight, and best of luck with your release of your book, and we can't wait to hear how that goes.
Gosh, listen, thank you guys so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I'll be looking forward to this episode and many more.
Awesome.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you, Austin.
Good to have you with us.
We'll be right back.
Thank you. Take care.
In Masonic news today, in a recent statement, the Grand Lodge of Ukraine has announced our thoughts are with our brothers in Ukraine. That's the Masonic news. So moted was.
So we hope that got out to our listeners, but we know that it may have been blocked by.
No, I mean us guys here around this table, we cope with stuff through fun and trying to get through it and over it and around it with humor. And what's happening in the world today is not humorous. We understand that, but that's just who we are.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many political things out of my comprehension that led up to this, but the sheer fact is that the people that are in the country getting bombed are victims.
They are the victims. That's true.
And
Our
you know,
prayers
that's
are
what
with
we're
them,
thinking
and
about.
we
Yep.
wish them safety.
All right. So, Tim, what do you got going on?
So actually, things have kind of settled down now that we have reached the what I call the suspension point in Freemasonry.
What an interesting phrase.
Yeah. Actually, the training schedule has settled down. I know that there will be some additional Grandview Secretary and Treasurer training when the audit system comes up online here shortly. I know we've been saying that for like 3 months. But really, I don't have a whole lot going on the next 2 weeks. The Academy of Masonic Knowledge is occurring at Elizabethtown on the 19th.
I'll be there.
You can be there in person, or you can sign up online to be part of that virtual audience. I'm actually going to miss the Valley of Harrisburg's Lodge of Perfection stated meeting because of my daughter's 16th birthday is happening. And I cannot believe that she is 16 years old.
Aw.
Did you buy her a car?
I did.
Oh, you sucker.
I did too.
I did.
16,
Picked it up
absolutely.
today. And so anyway, happy birthday, Olivia.
Happy birthday,
Very cool.
Olivia.
Happy birthday, Olivia.
We'll pick on your dad after the show.
Olivia.
Larry, what are you going to be up to?
Warbling.
Warbling, yes. His new career.
Goose and Gridiron tomorrow. Tall Cedars in 2 weeks. I don't know if we have a show. Yeah, Tall Cedars first, then the show. So that's pretty much it.
Alrighty then. Pete?
So we talked about Brother Chris Gibson. I'll be with him on Sunday evening up in Hershey. We're going to see Britt Floyd.
Oh, nice.
Tickets are available, Jack.
I don't know. When is this?
Sunday night, Britt Floyd, 8 p.m. in Hershey.
My kid's going to be in town. I can't do it.
Your son might want to pregame and go to the Britt Floyd. Just saying.
You won't go there.
Let's see. On Tuesday, Larry and I are having lunch with Glenn Knight, who is our junior deputy Grand Hall Cedar, to try and help him plan his year. And Wednesday, I think I just reminded Larry that he was supposed to be there.
The look on his face was priceless.
Yeah, that was great.
Wednesday the 16th, I'm actually going to be making a grand reappearance at Goodwin Council. And I will be filling in as principal conductor of work. And then the puppies get adopted that next weekend. I am going to sleep for 2 weeks. And then I'm going to go on a cruise, and you're not going to see much of me anymore.
All right, Josh, how about you?
Well, of course, I'm going to be mixing this episode of the podcast, which you just listened to, and I just did.
For which we are immensely grateful.
We are greatly. So before we cut those chickens loose, for the first time in probably, a year and a half, we'll give you a preview of what's coming. We've actually got some guests scheduled that you might find quite interesting.
Imagine that. We have a schedule.
We have a schedule. Our next episode will be Brother Mike O'Donnell. Is that correct? From the Zimbo Wine and Spirits Club. Something like that.
Zimbo Water Spirit.
Water Spirits. Okay. Well, something like that. Followed by Brother Tommy Long Jr., who's a Prince Hall Mason, and he will be with us at our first April episode. And then in our
special guest.
A special guest.
Very special Masonic.
Very
special
Masonic.
guest.
At our second
secret
April
sauce.
episode will be Right Worshipful Past Grand Master Thomas Gammon IV.
Well, I guess it's not a secret
We're
now.
looking forward to that. And then we're going to do our Sixth Sense episode at our first episode in May.
Yeah, I kind of had
Brother
the
Nathan
idea.
Minnick.
I had the idea that we should talk to brothers that have interesting careers.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to police officers. We've talked to paramedics. We talked to my buddy that was a golf pro.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're going to talk to a funeral director.
Yeah. Who truly sees dead people.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, they are.
And I don't know how much is going to make it to the air. Maybe we'll have to have an unedited episode because I'm going to ask Nathan a lot of questions. And so that might be a special doesn't have a show that doesn't have the name Masonic in it that we can release it and not get in trouble.
That's a vein of our show that we haven't really reached out to recently.
Now here's the thing.
Interesting careers.
Between my junior and senior year in high school, I worked for an undertaker. And I did a lot of stuff, and it was fun.
That explains
I thought about actually going to Undertaker School in Philadelphia, Eccles School of Mortuary Science, but I didn't do it.
So anyway,
you sold shirts instead.
But I made good money.
So anyway, lots of great episodes coming your way here on the Masonic Light Podcast. Again, thank you all for listening, and I think we're ready to cue the chickens and let Larry take us home.
Hey, thank you to Effort Lodge 665 for making this beautiful studio available. Thanks to Josh Lamberton, our producer-director, who always makes the show really great. Because if you were here when we were doing it, you'd say there's no way. No way, but he does a great job. Also, thanks to Jack Harley, our news director, Tim Dedman, our marketing director, and Michelle Snyder and Doug Mattenford, our contributors to Masonic Light Podcast. And this is Larry saying thanks for listening, and thank you, patrons, for helping to make this show as good as it gets.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
A special thanks goes out to our master producers, Brother Sean Williams, Josh Slaughter, Michael O'Donovan, George Reppert. George Reppert a second time. Maybe we should tell him about that. The Bow Tiger, Marion Humphreys III, Albert Smith, David Wright, Jared Kitchline, Timothy Main, Freddie LeBron a second time. Maybe we should tell him about that. Mark Mattern, B. Ross. I wonder if that's Betsy Ross. Skylar Clark, Jim Stevens, Tim Dedman, and Dan Madrigal. Thank you very much.